So my examples and the experience I can bring while teaching and during the next days will largely come from my area of expertise naturally, but please do not hesitate to also put your research interests on the table and ask how would you translate that to this topic or this kind of data. I think that's important discussions that we should ideally be having over the next days. Having said so, I prepared slides, I prepared lectures, I'll be talking a lot. It's a big group of people in the room, and still I'd like this to be a somewhat interactive experience. So, if anything's unclear, interrupt me, raise your hands. If you've got a question, if you need clarification, if you think I was too shallow on the topic and should go deeper into it, if I jumped over things that were unclear to you, just interrupt me, raise your hand, and let's try to make it a bit more of an interactive lecture than would maybe normally be possible with 40, 50 people in the room. It's always a bit challenging. We'll do that in the tutorial sessions anyway. That's the part where I really want it to be a bit more interactive, but also in the general lectures. Again, raise your hands whenever you feel like you want to add or ask relating the things that I'm talking about. Why am I doing methods teaching? Just very briefly, I come from a substantial interest in political communication, and then as a bachelor student, I failed my first statistic exam three times, I think, and failed the first methods class another time, and was very much not liking methods for the first part of my studies. And then, a little bit, as I said in the beginning already, I came to realize if I want to pursue the interests, the things that I'm interested in, ask the question, answer the questions that I'm interested in, I need methods. And the more and more I got into it, the more and more interested I became. And now I'm in a situation where I can easily say that, I've been involved in 20, 25, 30 content analysis projects over the last 15 years. I've ran at least 15, maybe 20 experimental types of studies. I was involved in large-scale survey collection. I think the largest thing was that we had a survey running in 21 European countries around the European elections 2009. So same survey, 21 different languages, 21 different countries, more than 24,000 participants in total. That was a huge operation. But I'm also, it's ranging from smaller types of surveys to these bigger surveys. So by time, I came to learn much more about adopting methods and came to appreciate good methods application more and more. Also from a frustration that I have sometimes when I'm doing my research, I've done my experiment, I start analyzing my experimental data, and all of a sudden I realized that, oh shoot, if I'd just done that differently, I could really write up a nice article now, but I didn't think about it beforehand. And that happens very regularly. Variables you're missing in your survey, or you're measuring at the wrong moment in your survey. Things in your content analysis that you only later figure out are more important than other things, but you didn't go deeper into. And that's kind of things that I want to talk about in the next couple of days. When it comes to the level of what we're doing, so there's a lot of people in the room who have very little knowledge of quantitative methods, and I don't want to lose those. So we'll probably start fairly basic and maybe too basic for some of you who have more experience. But I hope I can, every day come from a basic level to a somewhat more advanced level of understanding. For instance, when we talk about experiments on Thursday, it is, we'll do the classic experimental setup, which is fairly easy in the first lecture, but then try to come to other types of experimental setups, which are more innovative, novel, and interesting maybe. And thereby I hope this is going to be a learning experience for all, at least most of you, although you come from different levels basically of prior knowledge. Again, that's something we'll also have to see over the next days, how quick we go and what exactly we're doing. I will use a different slide template tomorrow, so having the text a bit up higher, because I just realized it's very low on this screen. But we'll have to do with this today. Just some practical issues in the beginning. So I was you were given a list of literature, which is article-based, because I thought that's the easiest and cheapest way to get to the literature, that most of those articles should be available online and could be fairly easily accessed. So the list of literature you had is articles, but there's these two books which I also would pass around for you to have a quick look. I think, in my sense, these are very nice general introductions to research methodology and quantitative research methodology in particular. Some of the examples or some of the figures we'll be having in the slides come from these books. It's for those of you who feel that they need to catch up in their reading, that want to read a bit deeper about certain issues, these are two books which I would recommend as a good general introduction to social science methodology. Somewhat more on the quantitative side than on the qualitative side. Again, this is recommended, nothing required here, but in case you during the next days want to dig deeper into certain issues, or after the course is over, this is what I would do. Then I was told I need to find a way to examine you, the participants, for this course. So this is what we'll try to do. And my idea was to have two short take-home exams. That's one tomorrow and one on Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not quite sure, probably Wednesday. Which is really going to be, one or two questions relating to the contents of that day, writing half a page to a page maybe, and sending them to me via email until the next morning at least, or something along those lines. That'll allow me to go over your exams during the night and grades for you, at least partial assessments for you on the final day. Another thing which we would like to try, and we have to see how that works in this room and with so many people, but we've got a slot for examination on the final day. And ideally, I'd like to put you in groups, and within those groups, during the next days and during the tutorial sessions, also divide a presentation that touches on several aspects of the things that we talk about during the next days. So we'll probably have to make groups of like 6 to 8 people or so. And then during the tutorial sessions, you'll have time to discuss certain aspects that I'd like you to discuss. And ideally, all of these come back then in a final presentation on the final day during the examination session. So that would be like 5-minute presentations maybe, that one from the group could be giving, and that would again, show how you reflected on the different topics during the course. So that's the part of work that I think I need to ask you to do, which in my sense it should be feasible over the next days. Any questions about that? Good. Today we'll have 2 lectures and 1 tutorial, and since we spent 25 minutes already doing other things, we'll try to squeeze that all into the 2.5 hours that we've got left. We'll take a little break in between somewhere. I'll see how it fits basically. And we'll do basics when it comes to quantitative research. That means we won't look at particular methods yet, but during the next 2 days I want to cover some basic issues that I think are important to cover when it comes to applying quantitative methodologies. And the first one should be, again, this reflects, a lot of you told me I'm doing partly qualitative, I only did qualitative. I don't want to make the divide bigger as it is, but for devising research projects, for thinking about what you want to do, it's important that you reflect on and take a conscious decision why you would position yourself in one or the other. And that's something we'll try to facilitate in the first lecture, talk a bit about induction, benefits and disadvantages, and so on and so forth. In the second lecture then, dive a bit into theories of data. What are data? What measurement scales do we know? Again, for some of you, this is going to be very basic stuff. And then I want to talk a little bit about quality criteria and the importance of those quality criteria, especially for quantitative research. And then in the tutorial, we'll try to talk about research questions, things that you're interested in, and try to figure out to what degree do they fit with quantitative design? What are the challenges, problems? What types of designs would fit the research question? How would I reformulate a question to make it more appropriate for a quantitative study, for instance? That's the things I want to do in the tutorial today. The literature for today, you saw on the reading list, touches on some of these issues at least, and shouldn't be too hard, I think. Now I'm wondering whether that's going to work, and I wanted to show you a little video. This is from YouTube, which is doing a lot of work in data visualization, and he mapped data over a period of 200 years on health and welfare worldwide. And we're not going to watch the full 4 minutes now that this video takes, but I find it fascinating to see, because this in a way shows what interesting things you can realize with quantitative data. This is numbers behind these graphics that he shows. So it's lifespan and income. Lifespan on the y-axis, income on the x-axis, and he's starting in 1810 and having all different countries of the world on this map. And so there's a lot of poor and sick countries, people with very little, short lifetime spans, and in a second he's starting the counter, and then you see the different countries. Every bubble is a country. You see the different bubbles moving. Sorry about the missing sound. So some countries become healthier. And the basic question is there a relationship between health and income, right? And I think it's a fascinating example of what you can do with quantitative data. But given that the sound isn't working, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'll stop this now, because the difference in what he's doing, booklet basically, where you can get all those data, and he basically, thought, I want to do this study, I want to show this visualization, so I'm going to pick those data and do something funky with those data, basically. Many of us are in a position that they collect their own data, or at least think about collecting their own data, which is very different to using secondary data sources, where many of the decisions in terms of design have been taken beforehand already. Even when you're using a survey that has been collected for the Indian election study and you weren't involved in the election study, it's a small number of people taking decisions what's in the survey and what is not, and you have to rely on what's there. Ideally, we all come to a situation at some point that we collect our own data, which I think is much more exciting and gives you much more liberty in what you actually want to do or not. So after I saw this for the first time 4 years ago, I thought I want to do bubbles, and I want to do moving bubbles, because I really like the idea. So what we did, we collected our own data and created a chart in which we have moving bubbles. Just to quickly show you, so this is one of the leading quality German newspapers, one of the most widely read ones. These are the big German parties, the Conservatives, the Social Democrats, the Liberals, the Greens, and the Left Party, right? And what you see in this field, and I'll make it moving in a second, is on the one hand the visibility of these parties in the news media over time. We started in 1993, and we'll run the thing to 2011, I think, 2012. Maybe even a bit longer. So the visibility, how visible were the parties in the news media? How were they evaluated? Was the evaluation positive or negative of party actors? And how much was the coverage focused on party leaders or not? So the bigger these bubbles get, the more focus there was just on one party member. And the smaller they get, the more variance was there in terms of different members of the parties covered. And now I hope this is gonna work. I probably have to run to the computer again. I used to work It worked on my computer.
Maybe since you are working on Mac, there might be some compatibility.
Yeah, you know what? that's a bit unfortunate. But, I'll try to show you again tomorrow and try to make it work and maybe connect my Mac. That's a bit annoying, but that's what I wanted to do. So you see the bubbles moving across the space. You see that in election times, in a campaign, all parties become more visible and more centered on a certain leader. You see government periods. So when the conservatives were leading the government, they're usually in front of visibility. Then all of a sudden the social democrats come into government and you see it turning around. And that was great. That was a great moment when we finally had this, which I can't show you for some reason. When we finally had this going with our own data, with the ideas that we had in terms of bringing those data into bubbles. And I think that some of the exciting moments when you do quantitative research, at some point you've got data, and you know what's behind those data, you know it's good data, and then you can actually do something with them and show interesting things based on those data. We'll try again tomorrow. I just want to show. So really starting from scratch and being very quick. Usually when we do science in very, very basic terms consists of theory and methods, right? We're interested in theory, we're interested in addressing a problem, we have a theoretical background to that problem, or try to develop theory relating to that problem, relating to that social reality, and in terms of what most of us are doing. And then this theory really is a model of the slice of that reality. It's not a model of reality because reality is too complex, but we usually take a slice of reality and turn that into a model that allows us to understand, predict, describe, and so on and so forth, social reality. Again, this theory makes descriptive or explanatory statements. That's what we usually try to do, and I'll come back to that in a second. Theory is not pure definition or tautologies, but that should be clear to everyone around the table. Now the methods are used to either test or to build a theory. And there we're already getting into the qualitative-quantitative divide maybe a little bit. So